I've made a career out of catching what other people miss. Bad badge swipes, timestamps that don't line up, a camera that suddenly goes down every other Thursday at 7:13 p.m. That instinct doesn't clock out just because I swipe my own keycard and ride the elevator up to our place. That Tuesday night, the city felt half asleep. Amber and Kyle's anniversary dinner still hung over me. Overpriced wine, polite laughter, my brother-in-law's hand a little too casual on my wife's chair for my taste. I'd written it off as me being tired and overcautious. Occupational hazard. The hallway to our apartment smelled like fresh paint and someone else's takeout. I slid the key into the deadbolt, already running numbers in my head. Overtime hours, project deadlines, the second honeymoon I was quietly building for Sophie in a folder named Q3 vendor reviews on my work desktop. The door opened quietly. No TV. No music. Just the low hum of the fridge and the city muted behind double-paned glass. That's when I saw it. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen island, screen still glowing. Sophie never did that. She was the queen of digital hygiene, always lecturing people about locking screens and clearing tabs. Tonight, the thing was wide open, facing the living room, cursor blinking in a message thread. My ribs tightened, just a little. Habit, not paranoia. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. They sounded too loud in the silence. I walked over like it was nothing, like I was just going to move the laptop so I could put down my bag. Then I saw his name, Kyle Harris. The top message was from an hour ago. K. Same hotel as last time. Tell Ethan it's a late client dinner. He'll buy it. He always does. A small, buzzing quiet opened in my chest. Not the kind that makes you collapse. The kind that narrows everything down to a tunnel. I scrolled. Weeks of messages unfolded. Hotel rooms labeled as client dinners. Calendar screenshots. Photos, nothing outright explicit, but there's a way two people look at each other that leaves nothing to the imagination. Her in a dress I'd complimented at Amber's barbecue. Him standing too close in a mirror selfie, his hand on her hip. More texts. He's so predictable. K. That's what makes this easy. He's good to me, just emotionally boring. Safe. K. You deserve some chaos, winky face. The security guy in me cataloged everything automatically. Dates, locations, patterns. Same hotel 3 times. Gaps that lined up with nights she'd come home, exhausted from back-to-back meetings. Times when Kyle had conveniently missed family dinners. My thumb kept scrolling. My face stayed calm. Most men imagine themselves flipping tables at this moment. Punching a wall. Screaming. Years of training did something else to me. My breathing got slower. My hearing sharpened. I noted the reflection of the screen in the window, the angle of the hallway, the time on the microwave. 9:42 p.m. The front door clicked behind me 10 minutes later. I didn't jump. I just watched her reflection appear in the glass next to the city lights. Sophie, coat half slipped off, heels in her hand, makeup a little smudged, like she'd rushed. Hey, she called, voice light. You're home, Earl. She stopped when she saw me standing at the island. I didn't say anything at first. I just turned the laptop around so she could see the screen. Her eyes went straight to his name, then down the thread. I watched the color drain from her face like someone pulling a plug. Ethan, she whispered. I can explain. That was the moment my life split in two. I looked at her, really looked. This woman I'd planned flights and hotel reservations for, the one I thought I was surprising in a few months. I searched for something familiar in her face and came up with a stranger. I saw everything, I said. No shouting, no cracked voice, just final. Her mouth opened, closed. The word started. It wasn't like that. I made a mistake. We can work through this. All the usual phrases people grab when the fire alarm has already been pulled. I didn't argue. I let the noise wash over me without sticking. I slid my wedding ring off my finger. The skin underneath felt pale and new. I set the ring down next to her car keys on the counter, metal touching metal. For a second, the sound of that contact was the loudest thing in the room. In one sharp breath, I realized it wasn't just that our marriage was cracked. Whatever we had was gone, replaced by something I didn't recognize. A a structure built on top of a sinkhole. She reached for me like she could pull us both back to where we were that morning. "Ethan, please." I stepped back. The security guy in me had finally made a decision. The perimeter was compromised. And I don't live in compromised spaces. I picked up my bag, glanced once at the laptop, and walked toward the bedroom without looking back at her. Behind me, the messages were still open, the blue and gray bubbles glowing in the dark like evidence in a case I didn't need to solve anymore. A few months before that Tuesday night, if you'd asked Sophie, she would have told you I was married to my job. Westwood Marketing loved guys like me, reliable, detail-obsessed, willing to pick up the late shifts when a client's security review went sideways. I started grabbing extra hours, stacking side contracts, saying yes when other managers said they were burned out. It wasn't because I loved the office. It was because of a folder in my desk drawer marked audit backups. Inside, printed quotes from airlines, screenshots of resort packages, notes about a place in Mexico with private villas and no kids club in sight. Our 5th anniversary was coming up. I decided we weren't going to celebrate it with takeout on the couch and a half-watched show. I wanted to hand her an envelope, see her face when she realized I'd been planning something just for us. While she was telling her friends I'd gone distant, I was on hold with a travel agent, listening to tinny jazz and comparing ocean views. "Ethan's distracted lately?" I overheard her say once on a video call as I walked past the bedroom. "He's checked out." "I don't know." "Checked out." I stood in the hallway, holding a stack of reports, and stared at the wall while she painted that picture. I let it slide. I figured once she saw the flights and hotel confirmations, the story would rewrite itself. Nights bled together. I'd stay an hour later to squeeze in another billable consult, then swing by the store to grab the wine she liked, come home to her scrolling on the couch. She'd look up, kiss my cheek, complain about how we never do anything spontaneous anymore. The irony didn't hit me until after the laptop. That night, after I told her, I saw everything. I didn't sleep. I packed. When I opened my desk drawer and saw that audit backups folder, it felt like getting punched with a memory. Neat printouts, flight options highlighted, notes about which week would best fit her calendar. I sat down, stared at it for a long time, then tore the itinerary in half. Not violently, methodically, page by page. The next morning, I called the resort, canceled the booking, and ate the non-refundable deposit without arguing. Same with the flights. The customer service rep apologized for the penalties. I told her it was fine. Money can be earned back. Self-respect is harder. Standing in our dark living room, half-packed suitcase open by the couch, I looked around at the apartment I'd helped pay for, the furniture we'd picked, the art she said made the place feel grown up, the life I thought I was upgrading with that secret trip. Something in me hardened, not into rage, into a line. I decided I would walk away from all of it and ask for nothing more than what was fair. No revenge through the bank account, no dragging this out just to make her hurt. She'd already taken enough. The second honeymoon she never knew about became the last gift I ever tried to give her. The real one wasn't a plane ticket. It was me deciding I wasn't going to spend one more hour working overtime for someone who'd already left. Once the shock wore off, the muscle memory kicked in. In my world, when a system's compromised, you don't argue with the intrusion. You assess, isolate, and execute the plan. Emotion is a log entry, not a strategy. I went to work the next morning like nothing had happened. At Westwood, I finished my audits, cleaned up my project folders, and built a handover document so tight my replacement could step in without asking a single question. I scheduled a meeting with my director, handed in my resignation, and cited personal relocation and long-term career fit. No gossip, no hints, no drama. People respect a man who leaves clean. At home, I did the same thing with our life. I sat at the kitchen table with a spreadsheet open, our bank accounts, retirement funds, and joint expenses laid out in black and white. I liquidated my retirement accounts, took the penalties on the chin, and split everything down the middle. No secret transfers. No hidden revenge. If she ever tried to say I'd punished her financially, the numbers would bury that lie before it got off the ground. I booked a one-way ticket to Chicago. I had no intention of living in Chicago. It was a misdirection for any paper trail she might get curious about later. The real destination would come later in cash from another airport under my own timeline. I set up mail forwarding with a staggered pattern, P.O. Box first, then a forwarding service, then digital scans. Boring to most people. Comforting someone like me. I closed old credit cards, opened new ones at a different bank, shut down social media, and ported my number to a service I could kill with one email. The hardest part wasn't the logistics. It was a chipped blue coffee mug. I'd had it since college. Every morning, I rinsed it, set it on the same counter, same spot, like a small anchor in the middle of a shifting life. That last week, I washed it, dried it, and put it on the top shelf all the way in the back. You don't leave anchors lying around when you're planning to move on. Amber called in the middle of it all, voice shaking. She'd confronted Kyle. She was filing for divorce. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she said. "We both lived with people we didn't really know, didn't we?" "Yeah," I told her quietly. "You deserve better than what that house gave either of us." It was the closest I came to breaking. On my last day in the apartment, I did one more sweep. No loose documents, no traces of my accounts, no levers she could pull to drag me back into her crisis later. I paused at the doorway, hand on the frame. I didn't feel like a man running away. I felt like someone finally doing for himself what he'd done for companies his whole career. Containing damage, cutting access, hardening what was left. Then I stepped out, pulled the door shut behind me, and walked down the hall like I was leaving a job that had already paid me everything it was ever going to. The first ripple reached me in a furnished apartment in Seattle, neutral gray couch. Art you could tell came in a package. Rain streaking the window. Amber called. "Have you seen Twitter?" she asked, voice raw. "I don't have Twitter anymore," I said. "On purpose." She exhaled. She tried to tell her side. It didn't go how she thought. Later that night, she sent me screenshots. Sophie had posted a long caption about loss, about being abandoned, about rebuilding after betrayal. My name wasn't in it, but anyone who'd been at our wedding could read between the lines. The internet didn't buy it. Someone dug up the elevator footage. Grainy, time-stamped, Sophie and Kyle pressed too close in a hotel elevator 2 months before everything blew up. Another person dropped screenshots from her messages. The ones where I was emotionally boring and predictable. Receipts always arrive eventually. Within days, there were reaction videos, call-outs, people stitching her story and breaking it apart line by line. Words like narcissistic, cheater, professional victim started circulating with her full name attached. Westwood Marketing didn't like that. Amber forwarded me an email she wasn't supposed to see. Clients asking why their brand was tied to that mess, questioning alignment. A week later, Sophie's LinkedIn quietly updated, "Open to work." I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a dark little corner of me that felt satisfied. That part of me sat back, watched the pile-on, and thought, you did this. Not me. The bigger part just felt tired. One evening, I sat in that bland apartment, the TV off, Seattle rain doing its usual drumbeat on the glass, reading an email from Amber. Our parents had finally blocked Sophie's number. Too much drama. Too many half-truths. "Are you going to say anything?" Amber asked on the phone. "Online, I mean." "No," I said. "I told the truth once. That's enough." I didn't comment. Didn't send screenshots. Didn't join the dog pile. I closed the tabs and shut the laptop. If you can call it revenge, mine was this. Silence, a steady paycheck from contract work, and a life being built in a city where nobody knew her name unless they went looking. She lit the match. All I did was step outside and let her watch the fire from inside the house she'd chosen to burn. Seattle was never meant to be forever. It was a layover with a lease. I took a long-term consulting role there because it checked 3 boxes. Paid well enough, used my security brain, and was as far from our old life as I could afford without leaving the country. The apartment came furnished. Thin couch, wobbly table, generic art of trees nobody cared about. I liked that nobody knew my name. Days were simple. Work, groceries, walks in the rain with a hood up and headphones in, no music playing. Just the excuse not to talk to anyone. I slept badly and ate all right. That was progress. When the contract ended, Sentinel Security Group called. They wanted someone to build out their executive protection division down in Portland. Smaller city, cleaner slate, work that felt closer to what I actually cared about. Keeping people safe instead of just keeping brands from getting embarrassed. I said yes. Portland was different. Slower, a little weirder. My first place, there was a cheap apartment with mismatched furniture I found secondhand. The mattress squeaked. The fridge hummed too loud. But nobody had ever cheated on me in those rooms. At Sentinel, I was Carter from security. The guy in rolled-up sleeves who knew how to lock things down and didn't waste words in meetings. That's where I met Leah Myers. Project manager. Organized without being controlling. Auburn curls usually clipped back in a mess that looked accidental, even if it wasn't. She listened when people talked, really listened. Not waiting for her turn to speak, not mentally composing a response while you were still mid-sentence. We didn't collide. We crossed paths. Kick-off meetings. Risk briefings. Her asking real questions instead of just nodding at my reports. She'd crack dry jokes when a client overcomplicated something, and I'd feel the corner of my mouth twitch upward before I could stop it. I didn't fall for her. I didn't have that gear anymore. At first, she was just the person in the room who made sense. Then she became the person I looked for on the attendee list for a call. Then she was the one I caught myself thinking about on the drive home, replaying something she'd said. We kept it professional. Coffee runs, shared notes, a few late nights at the office when a client pushed a deadline and everyone stayed to grind it out. She learned enough about my past to know there was a crater back there, but not enough to pick at it. One Thursday, we were walking down the hallway after a rough meeting. A client had spent an hour explaining to us how security should work, like I hadn't lived it for a decade. He really told the security guy that cameras are just for show, Leah said, shaking her head. You think he knows we can hear him when he mutters? Doubt it, I said. He probably thinks audio only works if he's the one talking. It wasn't that funny. But the way she rolled her eyes, the timing, the release after a long day, it hit right. I laughed. Not a polite exhale. A real, stupid, from-the-gut laugh that bent me forward for a second in the hallway. Halfway through it, I realized I'd forgotten everything. Sophie, the laptop, the ring on the counter. For a full minute, none of it existed. It was just me, a worn-out security guy, and a woman with auburn curls who made the air feel lighter. When the laugh died down, I straightened, wiped my eyes once, and she gave me this small, knowing smile. Good to hear that, she said. What? I asked. You're still laughing, she said simply. Means something's working. I didn't say it then, but I knew she was right. The marriage ended on a Tuesday night in front of an open laptop. The healing didn't start with a speech or a revelation. It started in a fluorescent-lit hallway, with one stupid laugh I didn't see coming. The email hit my inbox on a Tuesday morning between a vendor quote and a Sentinel internal memo. Subject line, Professional Inquiry, Personal Matter. The sender was a James Reynolds, licensed investigator. The body was short, clean, and careful. Said he believed he'd located me, that he'd been retained by my ex-wife, and that he wanted to confirm my identity before passing along a message. My pulse jumped once. Then training smoothed it out. I read it twice, checked the headers out of habit. Legit. I closed my eyes, pictured Sophie's face in the glow of that old kitchen laptop, and felt, not much, a small tug in the ribs, more annoyance than anything. I replied, we can meet. Neutral public place. No guarantee I accept any message. We picked a coffee shop near downtown. Bright, lots of windows, security cameras visible. Old habits die hard. Jim Reynolds looked exactly how you'd expect. Mid-50s, gray at the temples, soft voice, clothes that blended in anywhere. He shook my hand like he'd done this 1,000 times before, and not all of them went well. Mr. Carter, he said, appreciate you agreeing to meet. I nodded. You said this was about my ex. He sat, folded his hands around his cup. No recorder on the table. Good sign. She hired me to find you, he said. She's seeking closure. He didn't overemphasize the word, just laid it there. I watched him for a second. How much did she tell you? That there was an affair, he said evenly. That she regrets it. That you left clean and cut contact. That she'd like a chance to apologize in person. There was a time those words would have ripped me open. Now they just sounded like a script she'd practiced in the mirror. Part of me wanted to ask 1,000 questions. How she looked, what she was doing, whether she'd learned anything from the fallout she lit. Another part of me pictured Leah in our small rental house, humming in the kitchen while she cooked, asking how my day was without making it about herself. I thought about the line I'd drawn. She got her closure, I said finally. The night I turned a laptop around and said, I saw everything. Jim studied my face. You're sure you don't want to hear her out? I'm not advocating, just asking. Sometimes saying no is easier after you've at least listened. I've already done the hardest part, I said. I left. I rebuilt it. I'm not reopening that wound to make her feel better about what she did. He nodded once. Professional acceptance with a little human understanding around the edges. I'll tell her you declined contact, he said. Politely. That's fine, I said. You can tell her I wish for her clarity. That's it. We shook hands. As I walked out, I felt lighter than I expected. Saying no out loud has weight. The good kind. That night, I told Leah over dinner. My ex hired a PI, I said, taking a sip of water. He found me. She wanted a meeting. I passed. Leah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. No flare in her eyes, no drama. She set it down, reached across the table, and rested her hand on my shoulder. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Surprisingly. She squeezed once. You don't owe her anything, she said. No jealousy. No interrogation. Just a fact. And for the first time since that laptop glowed in my old kitchen, I believed it completely. Leah and I walked out of Sentinel just after 6, both a little fried from a long day and a client who thought zero risk was a realistic security goal. Beer or takeout? She asked, tucking her curls into her hood as the rain picked up. Both, I said. In that order. We stepped out onto the sidewalk, the kind of Portland evening where the sky couldn't commit to rain or mist, so it did both. That's when I heard it. Ethan. I turned. Across the street, under an umbrella she didn't seem to know how to use, stood a thinner, washed-out version of a life I'd already buried. Hair different, clothes hanging a little too loose, eyes hunting for a version of me that didn't exist anymore. Took me 3 seconds to recognize her. Sophie, I said. Leah glanced at me. I gave her a small nod. I've got this, and she stepped half a pace back but didn't leave. Sophie jogged across the street, almost slipping on the wet crosswalk. When she reached us, she was breathing hard, like the weather itself had been fighting her. Please, she said, rain spotting her cheeks around the umbrella. Just 5 minutes. Old me would have already been halfway into an argument. The new me just felt steady. You've got 3, I said. Use them well. Her eyes flicked to Leah, then back to me. So this is her. This is Leah, I said. She's part of my life now. Say what you came to say. Words rushed out of her. Remorse, therapy, rock bottom. I finally understand what I did to you. She talked about the internet, the job she lost, the friends who ghosted. Every sentence circled back to pain, but it all sounded like a pitch. Eventually she said, I just need you to know how sorry I am. I wake up every day wishing I could take it back. You were a good man and I broke something I can't fix. I let the silence sit between us for a beat. Rain tapped on concrete. Cars hissed past. I don't doubt you're sorry, I said. But you're asking for something I don't have to give. Her face crumpled. You still hate me that much? No, I said. That's the point. I don't hate you. Hate takes energy. I spent mine rebuilding. She swallowed. Then what did you come away with? After everything? Clarity, I said. I learned some broken things aren't meant to be repaired, and that my dignity matters more than keeping a picture that looks good from the outside. Her eyes glossed. Are you happy? I thought about that one. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wanted to say it right. "I found something better than happy," I said. "I found peace." Behind me, I could feel Leah's presence like a quiet anchor. Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. "Is there any version of this where we—" "No," I said, calm and final. "You got your ending the night," I said. "I saw everything and walked out. This is just the epilogue for you. For me, it's Tuesday." Her mouth trembled. She nodded once, like the weight finally settled where it belonged. "I'm glad you're okay," she managed. "I'm not okay because of you," I said. "I'm okay in spite of you. There's a difference." I stepped back, turned slightly toward Leah. "I accept your apology," I added. "Not because you earned it, because I'm done carrying any of this." Her eyes searched my face for something. Anger, longing, some proof she still mattered. She didn't find it. "Our table's waiting," I said to Leah. I placed my hand at the small of Leah's back, the way you do when someone is yours to protect, not possess, and we started walking. I didn't look over my shoulder. Behind us, I could feel the old life watching, rain soaking into whatever fantasy she'd written about this moment. Ahead of us was a crowded restaurant, bad lighting, good food, and a woman who'd seen my scars and didn't try to rewrite the story. Peace isn't loud. It's just the sound of your own footsteps walking away and not feeling pulled back. The final divorce packet showed up on a Tuesday, like the universe had a sense of humor about these things. I sat at our kitchen table in Portland, with scarred from previous renters, laptop pushed aside. The envelope lay in front of me with my name and Sophie's like we still belonged on the same line. Leah moved around the kitchen behind me, making tea. Kettle, cups, the small domestic sounds of a life that didn't feel like it was balancing on a fault line. "You want me to give you a minute?" she asked. "No," I said. "Stay." The papers were exactly what I'd asked my attorney for. Clean split, no support either way, assets divided by math, not emotion. No hidden stabs, no petty lines snuck into the fine print. I signed where the flags told me to sign. Ethan Carter, Ethan Carter, Ethan Carter. Each signature felt less like letting go of her and more like confirming who I'd become since I left. A few weeks earlier, in her hometown, I'd stood under a big oak tree in a charcoal suit that barely needed altering. We kept the ceremony small. Amber, a few close friends, Leah's family, no one who knew me primarily as the guy whose wife cheated. Leah wore a simple dress and flowers in her hair, nothing dramatic. When we stood there, foreheads touching for a second while the officiant talked, I remember one clear thought cutting through the noise. I'm not trying to fix something broken this time. I'm choosing someone who meets me where I actually am. No performance. No pretending. Later, we posted one photo, backs turned, holding hands, oak tree overhead. My caption was simple. Beginning again isn't a moment. It's something you do, day after day. When we told people we were expecting a baby, Leah cried happy tears. I didn't. Not because I wasn't moved, but because the feeling sat too deep for tears. I thought about the man in that old apartment, standing in laptop light, thinking his story had just ended. He had no idea. Back at the kitchen table, I stacked the signed pages, slid them into the return envelope, and sealed it. Leah set a mug of tea beside me and kissed the top of my head. No speech. No, how do you feel? She already knew. Downstairs at the mailboxes, I slipped the envelope into the slot and listened for the soft, final slide as it dropped out of my reach. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken. I just felt done. The story didn't end with the laptop, the divorce, or even the wedding under the oak tree. It ended the day I realized I didn't need her pain to measure my peace. Sometimes I sit in our small backyard, coffee in hand, Leah inside humming to the baby, Portland sky trying to decide between gray and blue. If you saw me from the street, you'd just see a tired man in a hoodie, not someone who once watched his life detonate on a Tuesday night. People think the turning point was the affair going public, or Sophie losing her job, or the day she stood in the rain asking if I was happy. They're wrong. The real shift was quieter. Me deciding some broken things stay broken, and walking away without apologizing for it. There's a difference between punishment and consequence. I never tried to ruin her. I just stopped standing between her choices and their fallout. One day, my kid will ask why I stare off when people joke about cheating. I'll tell them this: the important part of my story isn't that my wife betrayed me. It's that I finally refused to live with someone who showed me I wasn't safe with them.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.